Okay, we're ready to go.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maurice Dorsey. I'm happy to be here with all of you today. I'm a graduate of University of Maryland College Park at the undergraduate level. I graduated in undergraduate in 1970. I was in the College of Home Economics, and I also graduated from University of Maryland College Park for my doctoral program in the College of Education in 1983. Since that time, I've had a 42-year career total. I've worked in the public sector as well as the private sector, but the majority of my years have been served in the federal government, 35 years of federal service. Federal government to me was just the ideal location. I was an average student in both high school and college. I was one of those kids who didn't necessarily know what they wanted to be when they grew up. And federal government has been absolutely the most wonderful thing for me. However, when I got my doctorate, I wasn't certain that the doctorate was going to actually pay off for me because it seemed like it didn't show any cost benefit in terms of my income for approximately 10 years after I got the degree. And programs such as this weren't available. I think it is important to say that I'm 73, I'll be 74 next month, so I may be out of the timeline and time range of many of the panelists and maybe some of the guests who listen. But my most interesting job was at the United States Department of Agriculture here in Washington, D.C. I worked for the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And our principal role was to provide federal assistance to the state land grant colleges and universities. And at that time, and currently too, they provided funding for the historically white schools, the historically Black schools, the Native American schools, and Hispanic serving institutions. And so to me, it was a really very sterling career. I tended to like the federal government because there was often, and not all, just so many staff development and training opportunities that were in-service trainings that you could get to sort of enhance and buttress your knowledge of USDA and current events in government. I encourage people who are looking for employment to go to the federal government because we have on average 3,150 vacancies nationwide in the federal government. If you go to usajobs.gov, there's a listing. I do find the application process a little tedious, but it's important when applying for your position that you list everything that you have in order to receive years of service as well as your educational credentials to go along with that. So both my undergraduate degree and my PhD from University of Maryland at College Park were very, very influential in terms of the life that I'm living now. And I absolutely have no regrets. I do think that during the years that I attended from 1965 to 1970 for my undergraduate degree, the circumstances and situations and opportunities that are available for current doctoral students weren't available then. So I'm really happy to have the opportunity to share and give back to the university. I am a life member of the Alumni Association, and I have participated in many of the alumni activities. And with that, I will close unless someone has a question.
Hearing nothing, I guess I'll proceed.
I do have one quick question for Mr. Dorsey. You did mention the USA Jobs website as being tedious and the application process being tedious, which I would imagine is slightly an understatement. But how would you, and maybe this is a question for after everyone else is gone, how would you advise people to navigate that space?
Well, I think when I say it's tedious, when you think that there are 3,150 jobs and they're all listed on this one site, I think you need to know what federal agency that you want to work for. For example, if you think you want to work in the Department of Education or the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or if you want to work in economics, or if you want to work for the State Department. So I think your education should more or less guide you in terms of which federal agency. Another thing that's important is that with all federal agencies, there's a preponderance of one political party, Democrat or Republican. So based off of your political affiliation, your chances are probably greater in a federal agency that is representative of your political beliefs. I mean, that's sort of a generalization. At USDA, where I was, USDA had the absolute lowest track record on civil rights for Blacks, which was sort of more or less highlighted through the historically Black colleges and universities. However, on the other side of the street, we were number one in hiring the LGBTQ community. We were number one of all federal agencies. So there's certain characteristics about yourself and a sense of direction that you want to go in, Chauncey, to select the federal agency that you want to look at the jobs. You don't want to sit there and look at all 3,100.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So I know that's sort of, I'm a little long-winded, so you might have to cut me off sometimes.
Oh, fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think it's okay for me to begin. Okay. My name is Ashley Ruth. I also did my undergrad and graduate studies at the University of Maryland. Both degrees are in material science and engineering. While I was at Maryland, I was very involved in the engineering department. I think I was the president of the Engineering Student Council at one point. And I've remained engaged through contact with the material science department. I'm now a board of visitor member to try to help them out every or twice a year. We meet. So when I graduated with my PhD, I got to start working with the US Army C5 ISR Center, which stands for Communication, Computers, Control, Command, and Cyber. And then ISR is Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance, which is a bunch of words. It just means devices that maybe implement or that you can use for any of those attributes. And so I particularly focus on power and energy. This probably started when I was in graduate school. I started working on solid oxide fuel cells with Dr. Eric Waxman, and the Army had saw that I had some experience with this field of electrochemistry, if you will. And so I was actually awarded a SMART scholarship, which was how I was able to begin working with the Department of Defense. I did have the benefit of some undergraduate experience where I worked at the Army Research Lab up at APG while I was an undergraduate student. There I worked on armor materials. So my materials background in general is on ceramic materials, which is kind of what segued into my work in solid oxide fuel cells. Now that I work for the Army in C5ISR, so my job loosely is to develop batteries for soldiers. I focus on soldier portable batteries, so small handheld devices and the batteries that go inside or worn by the soldier, because the soldier carries upwards of 90 pounds in their ruck, and up to 18 pounds of that could be batteries. And it's usually depending upon the mission length, dictates how many batteries these soldiers have to carry, whether or not they need to carry a charger, because it's, they may be carrying either non-rechargeable or rechargeable batteries. And so not only are we working on the actual development of, existing cell technology and converting it into a military rugged, immersible, you can shoot it, those sorts of things. But we also focus on next generation technology. So we study new types of chemistries with the intent of making these batteries lighter or less bulky, so that we can have a agile and lethal soldier. I think that's a pretty concise description. If there's any questions, or we can proceed to Luke. All right, Luke, it's up to you.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for all the hosts. Thank you, my other panelists and students listening. My name is Luke Hebu. I was born and raised in Cameroon. It's a small country in Central Africa. I immigrated to the United States in 1999. That's almost over 20 years ago, to live a dream. I say this because I was very touched by the introduction by Blessing in the beginning of this, for those who have followed the introduction of these sessions. Blessing reminded us that most of us, some of us, are immigrants, and we all come to the United States to live a better life. So I was very touched by that introduction, being myself and a son of immigrants. Both my parents were farmers, and in Cameroon, I had observed my parents working very hard to produce very little because of lack of technology. And then therefore, I had always dreamed to one day become an agricultural engineer. And that's how I worked hard and got selected to the School of Engineering in Cameroon, where I graduated as engineer. So I have my BS engineering in agronomy with a focus on forestry and conservation biology. So I am a son of a family of 5, the only one who went past high school. Actually, I went all the way up to PhD. I got my master's degree in Belgium in conservation biology, and I immigrated to the United States to do my PhD, and I actually graduated from University of Maryland. So I am a TERP, I'm a learner still. I'm a TERP. Graduated in 2010, and before I graduated, I already got into the federal job. So this is an opportunity for me to let the student now listening that while you're still in, whether it's your undergrad or grad, you can start to network, right? Put your feet into different arena, federal governments, and network with people. And you might get your job before you even graduate. And so while I was at University of Maryland, I did a lot of internship with federal government, EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, twice. I think I did 2 summer internship with EPA and 1 summer internship with USDA NAS, the National Agricultural Statistics. And so while doing all this internship, I was networking, listening, seeing how jobs are advertised. I had a chance to learn how to improve my resume. So those are the things that if you have been doing internship, you should be connecting. And even after your internship, sometimes you should email to folks on there to just say hello. So I graduated in 2010, but I have my first federal job with U.S. Department of Agriculture. My agency is APHIS, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. And since 2006 until this day, I'm still with APHIS. My office is right down there in Riverdale, not too far from College Park Metro Station. And I work at USDA APHIS as an environmental environmental protection specialist. So on a daily basis, what I do is environmental analysis, analyzing the risk, and making sure that my agency comply with the federal laws and executive orders, such as the NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act, or Endangered Species Act, some policy related to chemical such as FIFRA or FFDCA, so Federal Food and Food, Drugs, Cosmetic Act, but also presidential executive orders. We all know, or maybe remember, that when President Biden came in, his first action were dropping some executive orders out there. For example, executive order about social or racial equity, right? Executive order for climate change, greenhouse gases, and all that. And so my job is to make sure that our agency comply with those laws and executive orders. And once the skill that I brought from the college, from the University of Maryland, was GIS, Geographic Information System. And Geographic Information System wasn't even what I came to Maryland to train for. But on campus, there were, some free, I said, soft skill opportunities, and Geographic Information System was one of those. And I said, I'm gonna just go and learn about GIS. And then I got interested to a point that I took a semester's class, and I used that skill to actually illustrate my PhD, which was on a decision support system for managing invasive bioagent. Could be disease N1, H1N1, influenza flu, or swine flu. It could be things like tuberculosis, anything that can spread in space and time. So GIS helped me to develop some decision system with that. And that's how I got hired at USDA. So I'm using a skill that initially wasn't what I came to learn. So this is for me to advise you guys that while you are on campus, and when there are advertisements about soft skill, it could be just simple things like or document. And I know we may, in the previous presentation, they talk about 10 skills, such as it could be communication, it could be things like Excel. There are advanced Excels. Learn or use those opportunities to learn more things, especially if they are offered free in addition to what you already have. So you never know what you would end up with. So that's, if there's, I think that I hope I didn't go over my time, but I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke. Mary was able to join us, and so we're going to get to our fourth panelist to let her introduce herself. So Mary, take it away.
Thank you, Amanda, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Jung, and I graduated from the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics in 2019. Since then, I am now currently an epidemiologist at the Food and Drug Administration, which is right down the road from CP. So I'm still nearby. Prior to that, I was a longtime TERP. I completed my Bachelor's of Science at UMD, as well as my MPH in epidemiology before continuing on to my PhD. And so in my current work, so right now the FDA is really making a big push for real world data and evidence. And so some of my day-to-day activities involve assessing real world data quality, completeness, and how we can leverage that data for regulatory decision making. As many of you know, longitudinal studies are great, clinical studies are great for evidence generation, but these can be, time consuming and costly. And so now working to leverage healthcare data, EHRs, claims and billing, pharmacy data, this big plethora of information out there to help make better decisions and choices for patients. And maybe I should take a step back and clarify that within FDA, I'm actually from the Center for Devices and Radiological Health. So you may hear me talk about CDRH, which is where I'm from, and a lot of my work being in the area of device safety, including post-market safety and effectiveness. So last year, I also had the honor and pleasure of doing a detail with HHS, and I was also able to help support the national COVID-19 response. And so a lot of exciting work and important work that I've had the pleasure to participate in, to provide you with a little more background information on how I ended up here. So towards the end of my doctoral program, I started an ORISE fellowship, and it was actually within the Division of Biostatistics at the time. And so I had the opportunity to start working with people internally on various research projects. And when that ended, I was able to network and get to know others within FDA as well, and was able to transfer to the Department of Epidemiology, which was great for me. It was more aligned with my training, my expertise, and my interests. And so after working as an ORISE fellow and graduating from the program, I recently was able to come on board full-time as an epidemiologist, where I've been doing my current work. And so I guess with that, that's a little bit about me, what I do, how I got here, and I am also open to any questions that you all may have.
Okay, so before we get started with questions, we want to ask each of the panelists if they could give one piece of advice to our current doctoral pathways, our current doctoral students. What would it be based on your experiences? So I'll just, in my block, I see Mary, then Maurice, then Amy, and then Luke. So that'll be the order that we go in. So we'll just go from one to the other.
Sure. So I mentioned that I had done an ORISE fellowship towards the end of my doctoral program. However, my fellowship was not related to my dissertation. I've seen colleagues who have been able to get these type of fellowships during their doctoral program. And not only do they have the great opportunity to work within these different organizations, gain experience and network, but they also are able to get financial support while working on their dissertations through these fellowships. So if you're able to do both, I think that would be the ideal situation, especially since I know it can be hard to get that kind of funding as a doctoral student.
Well, I guess I'm next. Thank you, Mary. When I got my doctorate at University of Maryland, I got it also on a fellowship as well. And the fellowship was extremely helpful. At that time, I was not a full-time permanent student residing on campus. I was working an 8-hour day, and I was going to school at night. So it took me a longer period of time to complete my PhD degree. But my advice to upcoming students is, as you're in the process of procuring your degree, to also have an objective of where you want to apply it, where you want to go to work, what it is you want to do. Because I found myself suddenly with the degree and didn't quite know what I wanted to do with it. Even though I had the fellowship, I was working in education, I didn't see the opportunities for upward mobility and advancement, and moving myself from my current position in education to a higher level. So I do encourage all doctoral students to keep an eye on the direction they want to go. And while they have a team of academic advisors, ask them also about employment opportunities and directions as to, where to go to seek employment at the PhD level. That was a little problematic for me, but again, for me, that was in 1970 when, before most of you were born. So I think things have changed a great deal since then. But I do think that after you get the degree, you want to apply it, you want to go to work, and you want to do something meaningful. And, you want career success and upward mobility, which I did eventually get, but I had to fish through a lot of networks in order to do it on my own. Whereas had I taken the opportunity to take advantage of my academic advisors and their experience in the College of Education, then I may have had to take a shorter route than the route that I did take. So I'll turn it over to the next person.
Mary took mine. That's okay. But I'll try to pull the thread maybe on what Maurice had just said. So he had mentioned, right, to get an idea of what you want to do. And I'm going to add on top of that, with whom you want to do it, right? Where do you want to work? Do you see yourself in federal government, or do you see yourself in industry or in academia, right? And if you, once you decide that much, right, I strongly encourage you to learn a lot about the entity in which you would like to work. And by that, I mean, get an idea of what their portfolio looks like, get an idea of, the kind of jobs and tasks, right, that those people do. One way to do that, of course, is like if you had some kind of internship opportunity. Other ways, right? I don't know if you guys can do this now. When I was at school, right, we had career fairs, I think every spring and fall. And I went to all of them even early on, right? And I got to know about agencies that I didn't even know existed, right? And, those sorts of interactions allowed me, just kind of get an understanding of what opportunities are even out there, and really helped me dial in where I wanted to be. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to make the suggestions, because previously, the question was asked about USA jobs, right? Oftentimes USA jobs is very specific for individuals, perhaps that already work in that agency, right? Because every job, sorry, my son just got home. Every job or every listing is required to be competitive, right? Whether or not I'm just getting a promotion, or if it is in actuality, maybe an entry-level position. So you have to consider that there's probably folks that may already be considered for that role. So I guess other piece of advice is don't be discouraged, right? If you aren't selected, right away. It is challenging to get a job in the government, but I think what would really make you stand out is if you know something about the organization that you are applying and the kind of work that they do, right? And if you say the right things, it makes them feel like that, you are a passionate individual that wants to work, in that field of work. That's just going to help you out. Okay, I'm done.
Right, and I think I'm next. So if you have followed me, you may have heard me say that I work a lot on policies, right? Laws, federal laws, and executive orders, right? And so at USDA, my department is called Policy Program, Policy Development Program, right? So at PPD, Policy Program Development. So I work a lot with laws and executive order. You would think that my background or my training is in policy, environmental policy. No, I am an agricultural engineer, so I'm an engineer. I'm a technological person, right? But I'm here working as policy developers or analysts. So this is to say that while you students are still in college, do not undermine or do not miss any chance to get trained or learn new things, something that is not necessary what you are there to train for. Trying to learn new skills, right? You heard me talk about GIS. Now I'm using GIS a lot, and even though that wasn't my first calling when I was in college, and we are going through, I mean, the world is changing pretty fast. We're going to a virtual world, technological world, things. So technology is a big things. So even if it's just Excel, even just PowerPoint, for those of you who were in the beginning of the presentation by Susan, she mentioned, I think, 10 transferable skills employers want. All right, and some of the first ones were critical thinking, problem solving. The second was communication, and the list went on and on. So she mentioned that, and I'm very happy. And that's why I keep on knocking down, trying to learn something different from what you do. Because in the end, when 100 person apply for a job, if you are pre-selected to the hiring manager, the hiring manager would try to see what's making a difference. You might all have the same skill, you might all be the same engineer or tool, but he or she would, the hiring manager would try to see what is it that one person have, that the other one does not have. So that extra skill that you have may make a whole difference. So that's my advice. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have received several questions in the chat. So panelists, I think what I'll do is I'll ask the questions and then maybe we'll have two of you respond. So that way we can get through as many as we can in the time that we have remaining. So the first question, which I think is very interesting, is at the start of your career path, how much did you plan and how much was serendipity? Like you just sort of fell into what you were doing, or did you really know you were laser focused?
Well, I can say that I was not laser focused. It was sort of serendipity, and I thought initially I wanted to work in the private sector, but then when I'd learned that the private sector wasn't fulfilling the kind of needs that I had, then I actually looked into state, working in state government, and subsequently ended up in the federal government, which actually ended up being the better fit for me. But it was not anything that I had planned. And I always felt that I had wasted some time by not knowing what I wanted to do when I finished really both of my degrees from College Park. I felt that employment, the purpose of education is to get employed, that you really need to know what it is you want to do. So I think Mary's comment was, really very right on about, investigating the agency and knowing, what it is you really want to do and being focused. And I think part of that comes from your high school transition too. I think that, at the undergraduate level, but also at the graduate level, I think your advising, your counseling, your career center, all of that plays an important role. And as you're saying, I think Mary was saying about the career day and career activities, I think all of those pieces go together in helping us formulate the kind of career that we are actually seeking. And I think some of us, like me, just really don't know. Part of it is parenting too. My parents didn't go to college, similar to Luke saying he being the only one in his family to go beyond a high school diploma. My parents couldn't advise and counsel me in terms of career path. So, I think there are a lot of things that we as students need to pay attention to and take advantage of when the opportunities present themselves. So that would be my reply.
I could add, I would say it's a mix of, for me personally, it was a mix of both, right? I would say the serendipity definitely played a very big role, but I was prepared when the opportunity came. How about that, right? So I planned to be the best me, at the stage that I was. And then I got fortunate to have the right advisor that got me into an internship with the Army as an undergrad. So that was a little bit of serendipity, but it was because I was in the College Park Scholars Program and I had to apply to that, right? And then when I went into grad school, because of that, background that I had, I maintained my work all through undergrad at the Army. And so when I applied to the SMART scholarship, I looked like a good candidate for the scholarship and I was awarded the scholarship. Because I got the scholarship, I now have this job, right? So it was a bit of serendipity in that I'm fortunate in the activities that I was able to do, but partially because I was able to do the best I could on myself to be the good candidate, right? So I'll say a mix of both, but a lot of luck too, right? Right, I'm also, my dad worked at McDonald's, right, his whole life. So like nobody in my family ever went to school either.
Okay, I think we've had several, it's amazing. I only have my bachelor's and master's degree from Maryland, but I can hear a lot of you, all of our panelists coming around to the importance of building your networks and knowing the people and being involved in the opportunities so that people know who you are. We've gotten several questions about USA jobs and trying to so several of them are, how many jobs did you apply through USA jobs before you got through? How do you, what can one do to break through USA jobs to get, is it a matter of persistence, or are there any special navigational help for those of you who have been successful navigating USA jobs?
Sure, I can definitely chime into that one. Hopefully you can hear me a little better. I know my audio might have been a little low. So it like you said, it can be tricky and it's quite a tough process. I know that sometimes it might take a little bit of detective work. And if you are able to find at least the center or team that actually initially posted the need for a position, that would be the most ideal. If you could somehow get a point of contact where you can reach out and learn more about the opportunity, so that way you can better tailor the information that you provide in submitting to USA jobs and your application. I would definitely recommend searching how federal government resumes and materials should be organized, because the way HR goes through the resumes is a little bit different than your typical resume. And so having that format down pat will really help you because that will help determine whether or not they feel that you are eligible or not. And if you're unable to find a contact for the actual team or division that's searching for a new employee, if you could at least get the contact for at least someone from HR, so that you can be sure to communicate if there are any ways or how they want the information to make their decision easier when they decide whether or not that they should pass your name along for further consideration. So I know that there are a lot of steps. Sometimes you might get a status update saying that your application has been sent forward, but I know that even getting to that point can be a big challenge.
Yeah, I can add to what Mary just said. For me, maybe it's a little different from other people because I come to US already being a responsible parent. I was married, I had a son, and so whatever I did, I always had a mind set to work. So I already planned. I was not there like we were talking about serendipity, but I already had my plan, and I did apply for only a few jobs, EPA and USDA. I don't remember, maybe one or two more, but those two, I will keep applying within those agencies at different departments. And I will keep on applying. And I got a chance to learn about writing a resume. I don't know if you are familiar with resume type, but there's also something called federal resume. This is kind of resume really for federal agents. So me being, rotating within federal agency for internship, I would learn more about what they do and come back home and tailor my resume, according to what those offices, what they do. Don't be surprised if somebody tell you that he or she has like 20 resumes. So it's because, you keep improving, you keep making changes based on what you're looking for. So navigating through those two agencies, EPA and USDA, I learned a lot about developing federal resume, and I keep applying. So USDA Airways was my very first job, federal job I applied, and I got accepted. And since then, I've been with USDA Airways for almost 20 years. So I don't know, my case might not be the same for everyone, but I already had a mindset because I was a parent. So I knew that I need to, whatever I do, focus on job from the beginning.
Excellent, thank you. I'm hearing a lot of making sure you do your homework and really find out and probably maybe even finding people who you know that work in those agencies, if they can look over your application or your resume and give you tips to help you before you hit that submit button. Question we have here is, what was your transition process like going from a student to a employee? What was that like? Can you share your story?
Mine was actually because I was a smart scholar. Gosh, if anybody wants to ask questions about that, I guess I'll offer that I'm willing to take emails if we don't have the time to cover it now. But as a smart scholar, I was actually able to use, I was able to work in my now, agency's building even during the summers while I was doing my PhD. And so I actually incorporated that work into my thesis, and it helped me hit the ground running when I got there. I will say, typically though, getting into federal service, it is definitely first month or so, you'll be lucky if your computer works. So there's a lot of, paperwork and red tape to get through. And it takes a lot to kind of understand how it works. One thing I wanted to point out, from what Luke said earlier, like I too also happen to be getting involved in policy things, right? The executive order lately on battery, high capacity batteries, right? I'm now working on a response for that, right? For the DOE. So having just learning a lot about your federal agencies, especially the military. We're like acronym central, and trying to figure out what that all even means. It takes a long time to try to understand and be truly effective. But I would say I finally hit my stride about 2 to 3 years after I started working. And, then I think I really felt like I was, where I wanted to be, and was able to grow better now in my career.
My transition was it was a very happy transition. I was happy to get into the government. One thing though, I would advise new graduates who come in is that the government also works slow. I think your point on getting your computer, getting your office, filling out the forms, filling out the reports, the accountability studies, the amount of emails that you come in, and filtering through the voluminous amount of work, sometimes opportunities, sometimes committees, sometimes just a variety of things that engage you. But I do think that it doesn't work quickly all of the time in every agency. I know in my agency, it was just an issue of getting my office. I had gone through the process, I had been accepted, I had been interviewed, I had been assigned, but then when I get to the actual day, first day of work, it's like, well, where are you going to sit? Where's your furniture going to come from? Is the computer going to be? But you can't be impatient with that. I think that's a part of the system. It is a large system. It's a bureaucracy. It's not a small family-owned company where things are done quickly. So my transition, because my parents both worked for the federal government, and my dad was military for a brief period of time. I had some awareness of how the government operated, but my parents also had me working probably since I was 13 years old, whether within the home or without of the home, doing before even high school, I was working. So getting into the workforce had some familiarity with me. I wasn't timid or shy, and nor was I rushing. And so I just say, keep an open mind, stay positive, understand that it's a bureaucracy. It doesn't move fast, it doesn't move slow. And your name, the previous speaker, your name is not coming up. I think it's Mary. So, but anyway, I agree with all of your points. I think they are very well taken, and they were very similar to mine as well too. And I think, is it Luke? I think it's Luke. His name is not up there, but I think that combination of the three speakers who've answered so far, are really right on. And Mary too, of course.
We really appreciate all the good advice that you are giving to our students. We have a couple more questions as we come close to the end of our session for today. And I think this is really probably very poignant as our students try and navigate what are their next steps. The question is, do you think your work environments are healthy and productive? Are you happy in these government positions? And what, if you see any pros or cons to working for the federal government versus outside the government agencies?
Well, I don't want to dominate, but since no one's saying anything, I don't want to waste any time. I think in every organization, there are some dysfunctional people. I mean, I think that there are people in every organization, whether it's public or private, that may be difficult, and it may be one or two who take up all of the oxygen in the space. I think your ability to knowing how to work with people and how to negotiate with people and get along with people is very important, and understand that you are not the center of the organization, that you have to work as a team with other people and other employees, and the work that comes out of your agency is attaching to other agencies, either in the federal government, and in my case, the land grant college and university system. So I have found the federal government, USDA in particular, where I was employed, to be an outstanding agency. We had a great administrator, we had great deputy administrators, we had staff development and opportunity, we had job security, you had annual leave, you got cost of living advantages, and your security was really pretty good. You had paid holidays. And so, and some of these things you don't get in other employment, but in a situation now, like with the pandemic, we probably weren't like 100% state of the art, but I mean, we were pretty state of the art. We could work, remotely work from home. There's some flexibility in there, but I do think that there are a few toxic people in every organization. So just be armored.
I wanted to mirror some of what he was saying. I would say that in the military, our focus is the warfighter, the soldier, right? It's not about me. And so you've got to kind of take, don't be looking for rewards and for, high praise, right? Just get the job done, because you're trying to do a job just so you can save lives or protect people, right? So it's not so, I guess I would say, if you are the kind of person that needs maybe some pats on the back, for lack of a better term, then maybe it will be harder for you. But if you're the kind of person that doesn't need that in order to do a good job, and then I love my job. I love doing what I do. It's as he had mentioned, the benefits package of working for the government is great. You do not get paid quite like you would in industry. That's fact, right? But for me, it is worth it to do something that I find very fulfilling. And it's fulfilling for me, and fills my soul. It has nothing to do with my salary or having people know who I am, right? It's simply because I'm working with my teammates, and we got a job to do. Because if we dilly-dally, then it could impact somebody in a bad way if we don't do it correctly. So
yeah, I don't want to echo what Ashley and Maurice have already said in terms of benefits, right, and flexibility. But I like to emphasize on the fact that as a parent, right, so I like to have the opportunity to work at home, right? Before even the COVID, I was already working at home 3 days a week, right? Sometimes 4 days a week, right? And so my daughter would call me, or maybe the school would call me and say, my daughter is coughing, come and get your child. And I'll just go there and come back and continue doing my work at home, right? So I don't have to be at work at 8 o'clock. I could be there maybe 9 or maybe 10 and finish a little bit later. I make those. So flexibility was my number one thing as a parent. So benefits are, although I already mentioned that, right? Healthcare or life insurance, all that stuff is great.
I just wanted to quickly add, work-life balance is of course very important, and I've been very fortunate to have management completely on board. We actually have daily reporting for how our time is spent on what activities, and that helps management to keep track of how many hours our employees are working, what teams look like they're being overworked and need some assistance. Maybe they need to put out another call or post for another employee or a new position. And so you're not alone. There's definitely communication that happens about that. And so just wanted to say that, you want to have that open line of communication with your supervisor and management, and especially during the pandemic. They've been very vocal about how important it is for employees to take care of themselves. And again, that flexibility that other panelists have been mentioning as well.
Okay, great. We've had some really good chat going in the chat box as well. We are nearing our time to the end of our conversation today. And so I just want to take a second to say thank you very much to all of our panelists. You've provided some really amazing feedback. For those of you who are our students who have attended, you can find their LinkedIn information on the document that was shared with you to navigate the schedule for today, so you can be in contact with them if you would like to follow up more with them via LinkedIn. And at this point, I just wanted to say also just two quick housekeepings. So we've got the evaluation there. We also have, we want to make sure that you know that these 4 panelists, plus I think almost 300 others, are a member of the Postdoc Alumni Network. So you can click that Go link in the chat to be able to find out more about our alumni network that will help, that seeks to continue to connect and engage those of you who have or in the process of or have received your doctoral degrees from UMD to help you along your journeys. And we also have, and we just wanted to make sure you know that we have several other panels that are happening after this. So make sure you go back to the home link for the conference, so you know what other opportunities you can sign in for. And then later this afternoon, like myself, I'm hosting, many of us as colleges are hosting some virtual happy hours for doctoral students in our colleges. So those links are also provided to you as a part of the conference registration. So we have just a few seconds. So I just wanted to say, we'll just go around our panelists and just say one kind of final thought, and we'll start with Ashley.
Okay. Actually, something I thought of that maybe I could have given as my advice in the past is I think one of the reasons why I have been able to have success, with careers and scholarships and in general is because I think it seems that I exude passion, right? That and believe it or not, people really pick up on your body language cues and these sort of subtleties. And so I strongly recommend being very passionate about what you do. It tends to just come off in a positive way, and it's really helpful. So I found that to be really useful tool for me. Another thing is that if you have the ability to stand out in any way, for example, I'm a woman in engineering. I'm almost always in a room full of dudes all the time. So, I make myself memorable. That's my trick. Make myself memorable then, right? Show them that I know my stuff, and then they don't forget me, and then they come back to me later because they remember, hey, there was that chick in the, that was talking about the battery stuff. Oh, she knows her stuff, right? And so they remember me. And so if there's a chance that you find yourself, being a minority in the room, take advantage of it and embrace it, because it can actually work towards your advantage if you make yourself memorable. Because there's not many advantages otherwise.
Ashley, I think your point is very well taken. I was very positive, and I think projecting a positive attitude in the work environment is very important. And I would like to leave for the graduate students, if you're working in federal government, to learn how to work independently. You don't get a lot of handheld, a lot of feeding and a lot of telling you what to do. They look for people or individuals and employees who know how to take initiative to do the work that's assigned and somewhat figure it out. I think in those situations where you feel that your unit, your agency is a little stagnant or a little boring for you, reinvent yourself, expand your portfolio to different things that are related to the general mission of the organization, the mission goals and objectives, and spread yourself out. Don't wait for your immediate supervisor or deputy administrators or administrators to tell you to do everything. So I think independent, learning how to work independently is important with a very positive attitude. I think there are a number of filters within the system, if you're wrong or erroneous, that will filter out anything that you're doing that's incorrect, wrong, or improper, or indecent, or immoral.
I would say find yourself a mentor if you can, someone who's already navigated the process. Not only will you grow professionally, but also personally, someone who's already been through the struggles and challenges that you have and can help equip you with some strategies to overcome them easier.
And for me, I would say USDA is the agency that feed America, right? We feed America, we feed the world. We make sure that the food that you consume is healthy. We provide help for rural America. We are about 100, we have about 100,000 employees. So USDA is a nice place to work at, and it's for a reason why a lot of people apply to USDA. We're the first department or organization, federal organization in the United States. So it's a very nice place to work at. Look at opportunity online and just dig into it. You'll find a nice place to. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thank you again, panelists. We certainly appreciate your time given to us today. It certainly means a lot to all of us. And thank you to our participants for joining us. We wish you nothing but the best, and know that there's always somebody who can help you if you just look for our names and find those people. Good luck. And I guess the best way to close out is to say, go Terps.
Go Terps.
Go Terps.
Good there.
Have a great weekend.
Hey,
Good afternoon, everyone.
bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Have you been able to